Hi, I'm Whitfield Athey, Chief Executive Officer of Delta Data. And for this week's Mutual Minute, we're talking with Gail Weiss, President of Aon Trust. And the topic this week is illiquid strategies in CITs. Gail, tell us a little bit about this. What type of stuff is this?
So we are contemplating expanding our CIT offering to include some illiquid securities and some funds that have a longer valuation period than the typical daily valuation of CITs. So it's proposing some challenges. And so some of the things that we're looking at as we are going down the path of contemplating launching these new funds is how do we look at the valuation of the underlying securities and try to match them up with the valuation that we have for our CIT. For example, if we want to have a monthly valued CIT, but the underlying securities might be only quarterly valued, how do we reconcile that difference? And as you can imagine, it causes a lot of challenges from an operational perspective.
So are we talking like interval funds?
It's similar to that, but there are certain strategies that may not be suitable for a daily environment. Some of the things that we see are some of the credit opportunities out there, some of the real estate funds, and primarily the clientele that would invest in these are going to be DB plans. They're not going to be daily valued CITs. So we're looking at how do we sync up those valuations operationally. And we're working with our auditors and with our inside and outside counsel looking at what is the proper cadence, but how do we do this from an audit perspective to make sure that we are properly valuing those securities so that when we do have a NAV calculation, we appropriately have that, the difference factored in, but also how do we appropriately disclose this to our clients so that when the investors go in, they have the confidence and full understanding of what we're trying to do. So it is an interesting project that we're working on.
So, in my career, I've always noticed the less liquid, the more return generally. And, especially in the alts world, that's the way it is. I totally understand the complexities around the disclosures that you're working through. What do you do with redemptions or investments that are in the middle of a period of valuation of a significant asset in the portfolio or in the strategy?
So we're working with our auditors to understand what they would expect from an audit. And we're looking at how do we independently go through and value that security and come up with something that we can use to calculate that NAV. And it's not always easy. It's not going to be inexpensive, but we want to do it right. And we want to do it right for the investors. And part of our challenge is we've got to manage cash liquidity in the fund. So if we have, let's say, monthly valuations, we've got to be confident that we're going to have the ability to pay out on those monthly valuations, even if we only have quarterly liquidity in the funds. So can we stagger some of the underlying funds to have liquidity not always on quarter end, but maybe on different months end? The other thing is we're really looking at how do we handle exceptions, because we always know that people want to go into these funds. We make it very clear in the disclosure documents that there is going to be a tie-up there, that it might be monthly or quarterly liquidity, but people always seem to want exceptions. So how do we document any of those kinds of things that we may or may not approve? How do we treat all customers fairly? And the other thing too is before even people invest in it, how are we looking at the suitability for this client to make sure when they come into the fund that this is the right choice? Because there may be times where it may be, let's say, a DB plan, and we have this fund that has less liquidity, but they're really contemplating maybe, annuitizing the plan or terminating it within the next couple of years, and the illiquid fund might not be a good solution for them. So there's all kinds of challenges like that to consider.
This has been a great conversation, Gail, and I really appreciate you joining us for this week's Mutual Minute.